The Giants fired Brian Daboll. What was your initial reaction to that?
Well, I knew he was going to get fired.
Because
My right hand up the guy, I said,
on the fourth
watching the
down,
game, I said, he going to get Jackson Dart hurt.
welcome to the Schultz Report presented by Fanatics Sportsbook. I'm your host, NFL Insider Jordan Schultz, and we have a lot to talk about today, just as we were catching our breath and settling into the second half of the season after an insane trade deadline. Week 10 happened. Keyshawn Johnson will be joining us, tapping in to talk Jets, Jets, not to mention what promises to be a monstrous second half of the season. Lock in and let's go. Hey all, through my partnership with Fanatics Sportsbook, you've heard me talk about Fan Cash. Fan Cash is the ultimate sports currency. From bets to tickets to memorabilia and one-of-a-kind experiences, Fan Cash unlocks the world of Fanatics. And now, every week, I'm working with my partners at Fanatics Sportsbook to give $50 in Fan Cash to 4 lucky followers. Look out for the post on my ex at Schultz_report every Saturday or Sunday morning for your chance to win Fan Cash to use on jerseys, bonus bets, and more. Fanatics Sportsbook. Winning hits different here. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Offer not available in all states. Terms apply. See Fanatics Sportsbook app. So we've been talking a lot about the Jets and Giants for 11 straight weeks now, and typically there really isn't much to say about two teams that have performed at the level they have this year. But Gang Green and Big Blue are truly the gift that keeps on giving. The New York Football Giants fired their head coach, Brian Daboll. To understand why this happened, you have to really go back to the last couple years where the Giants have not been able to continue the momentum they had Daboll's first season when they won a playoff game and looked like a team on the rise. Now, in 3+ seasons at the helm, Brian Daboll went 20, 40, and 1, one playoff win, but it wasn't just the losing. It was the sheer fact that he was not able to get Daniel Jones consistently to the level the Giants expected. It's also the fact that I think with Jackson Dart, he has shown that he's going to be a very good, proficient NFL quarterback, but he's in the protocol a ton. He has a ton of design quarterback runs. Brian Daboll, his calling card was being a quarterback guru, an offensive wonderkind. That's what the Giants believed and hoped they were getting when they hired him away from Buffalo, and they just did not get that consistently. You couple that with all the losing, but not just the losing, the way the Giants would lose these crazy games in the fourth quarter. Denver, New Orleans game was rough. This past weekend with Chicago, it was a consistent theme under Brian Daboll. Now, to be fair, the Giants were snake bitten by a ton of significant injuries. Obviously, Andrew Thomas the last couple years. Most recently, Malik Neighbors, Cam Skattebo. And that's not on Daboll, but I think the evidence, the proof was in the pudding. And now they're tasked with hiring their 5th coach since Tom Coughlin. That's 5 coaches basically in 1 decade. The other key figure here, and another name to watch, is GM Joe Schoen. Now, Schoen came in with Daboll from Buffalo. They were part of that Bills regime. He has done some good things, including drafting Malik Neighbors, drafting Jackson Dart, Cam Skattebo. They've hit on several picks. They've also missed on picks, and more importantly, they have not, again, had the consistent success during his tenure. 20, 40, and 1 with 1 playoff win. But the corollary to me, and it's not a 1-to-1, but it's similar, and a rival team brought this up to me, is Jacksonville with Trent Baalke last year. Now, if you recall, the Jaguars fired Doug Peterson, but they kept Baalke, their GM. It seemed like an odd and curious decision at the time, and what they realized quickly was that they were not going to be able to get the type of head coach they wanted. They were not going to have their pick of the litter when it came to hiring. And so what did they do? They fired Trent Baalke, hired James Gladstone and Liam Cohen as their GM and head coach. Now, to me, Schoen is not necessarily safe after this season. I think, too, in the aftermath of Daniel Jones having an MVP caliber season in Indianapolis, Saquon Barkley last year winning Offensive Player of the Year, just all of that, there might just need to be a refresh. John Mara, the owner of the Giants, has been incredibly patient. He has said this needs to be a better product. And we told you throughout the last couple months that Brian Daboll's time could be short, especially if they kept losing. We also told you that Joe Schoen, his time could be short if the Giants continue losing, but more importantly, losing in this fashion. There is a lack of leadership and accountability within that building. The reality is the Giants might just be sitting on a lottery ticket with this superstar quartet of Dart, Scadaboo, Neighbors, and Abdul Carter. And if you're Joe Schoen, you have to show that you are the guy to cash in. Staying in East Rutherford, the New York Jets decimated their defense at the deadline, not only with Michael Carter, but moving Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams while also benching Quincy Williams, a move I didn't really get since he was playing great football. Now, these types of moves are not only extremely rare for NFL teams as a whole, but are even more rare for a franchise that has tried everything under the sun to remain both relevant and competitive. And despite all of that, the Jets still have the longest playoff drought of any sports team in North America. So what does this all mean? The way I see it, the Jets have, maybe for the first time ever, committed to a full-on rebuild. That's a good thing, maybe even a great thing. Let's start with Sauce Gardner. Now, he is an all-pro. He is terrific. He's fantastic. Pick your adjective. They got 2 first-round picks for him. The reason that's so significant is that they are not 1, 2, or 3 players away. They are a lot of players away from being competitive and ultimately competing for a playoff spot. Sauce Gardner, as great as he is not going to get you there by himself. So what do? You get a ton of draft capital. You do the same thing with Quinnen Williams, a future 1 and a 3. The reason I love that too is that as great as Quinnen Williams is, he's going to need a new contract. And if you're the Jets, you're not going to pay him that money. You knew that. So you go out and you get massive draft capital. Now you can either attack the draft with all of these picks or potentially mortgage 1 or 2 of them like Dallas just did with Quinnen Williams and get another player that you love. I think the real key here is Aaron Glenn. This is a massive vote of confidence in the first-year head coach. And, if you think about it, he inherited a team that wasn't his and a team that wasn't a winning ball club. If you go back to his coaching DNA and how he learned, the blueprint of how to build a program, it's Dan Campbell. It's the Detroit Lions. What happened Dan Campbell's first year in Detroit? They were 3-13-1. The Jets are not dissimilar. This is about the long-term plan. So if you're the Jets and you have a first-year GM in Darren Muji and a first-year head coach in Aaron Glenn, you're now armed with the draft capital necessary to build this Jets program the way you want. That's a great thing, and I believe in this regime, and for the first time in a long time, it's looking up in Florham Park. Speaking of the future and the Jets, the Colts signaled how they are approaching their own future by nabbing Sauce Gardner from the Jets at the trade deadline. Not only did this shocking move show the league that the Colts mean business, but it also shows how much the team believes in Daniel Jones. Now, since week 1, Jones has been one of the premier quarterbacks in football and a bona fide MVP candidate. But the Sauce deal gives him a massive amount of leverage. Remember, Jones bet on himself. He signed a 1-year deal with the Colts for the opportunity to go out and win the starting job over Anthony Richardson, which he did, and now have this great season. Now, the Colts are going to have to make a decision how much money that means for Jones. But make no mistake, with the cap going up, the way quarterbacks are being paid, Daniel Jones is going to have an opportunity to make well into the 40s, maybe even approach the $50 million mark per season. And as he's shown, he's worth every penny. If you're owner Carly Ursay, you have to be ecstatic because this is really the best case scenario, the absolute best case scenario that you could have expected. Not only with Jones, but the rookie Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor having an MVP caliber year himself, great trio of wide receivers with Downs, Pittman, and Pierce, a terrific offensive line led by the best guard in football and Quentin Nelson. And oh, by the way, Shane Steichen has been all that and a bag of chips as a head coach. Joe Burrow has officially returned to practice with the Bengals opening his 21-day window to return from IR and his turf toe injury. Joe is targeting a Thanksgiving Day comeback game to go up against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Now listen, this is surprising. This is incredibly early, not only because of the caliber of injury, but just the timeline we all thought, which was basically mid-December. So Burrow is way ahead of schedule. We knew he was ahead of schedule, but not to this extent. And with that in mind, it gives us a real look under the hood as to why the Bengals were so hesitant to trade Trey Hendrickson, knowing full well that he's probably on his way out after this season when he's a free agent. But if you're the Bengals in the very rugged but very winnable AFC North, you are still right there. And if you can get Burrow back by Thanksgiving or right around that date, you'll absolutely have an opportunity to make a playoff push. And it's also worth noting, Cincinnati kept this very much under wraps. It was not well known by any stretch that Burrow was this far ahead in his rehab. And make no mistake, this is a big-time bonus for the Bengals, and now it's a matter of can he get them back in the playoff hunt. It is worth noting that they have a gauntlet of a schedule: Steelers, Pats, Ravens, Bills, Ravens. But if anybody can do it, it's Joe Shiesty. We told you the Eagles were going to be very active at the deadline, and they had the most active deadline of any team. And it's already paying off with their recent acquisition, Jalen Phillips having a monster game, and Phillies win Monday night against the Packers. On 52 snaps, Phillips had 7 pressures, 6 tackles, 2 quarterback hits, a fumble recovery, and his play on 4th and 1 with about 1:30 led to a Josh Jacobs fumble that sealed the win. And this is who Jalen Phillips is, right? He's a former first-round pick. He's got speed, power, he plays the run. He's a game wrecker. And you pair him with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and that phenomenal defensive line, that really terrific defense, and this is the type of impact he can have. It's also a reminder that if you're smart and focused at the trade deadline, as Philly was, you can significantly impact and improve your team. For a few weeks there, it looked like Philly maybe had lost a little bit of juice, but the trade deadline clearly reignited that entire franchise. Last week we spoke about the MVP race, and I mentioned that with the year Jonathan Taylor is having, his name should be in the MVP conversation. And now, after another absurd performance last week, 244 yards, 3 touchdowns, Jonathan Taylor, in my opinion, if he keeps this up, he could absolutely win the MVP award and be the first guy to do it at the running back position since Adrian Peterson. Clearly, I'm not the only one who believes in Taylor. If you think about it, he's already 3rd in MVP odds behind Matthew Stafford and Drake May. Peterson, by the way, when he won it, 2012. But as rare as it is, Taylor, with the resume he's putting together, with the way the Colts offense is trending, he absolutely could win the MVP award. Let's welcome to the show the only man who bet the house on the Jets to win the Super Bowl this season, Keyshawn Johnson. How much did you put on that, Key?
No, I wouldn't put anything on the Jets to win the Super Bowl, but I did think for whatever it was worth at the start of the season. I said they're gonna win the division for whatever that
Oh,
was
I
worth.
remember.
Part is because I'm backing Aaron Glenn 100%, and I believed in Justin Fields. And looking at them from a year ago, I said to myself, okay, they're a quarterback away from making a strong run. And I thought Justin Fields would come in and do some of the same things he did at Pittsburgh. And then you go a year further removed when Aaron Rodgers was there and Zach Wilson was taking over, and you kept saying to yourself, oh, if they just had an Aaron Rodgers, they going to the playoffs because Zach Wilson was able to win 7 games or whatever the number was. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers could add 3 more games. So you start looking at it from that standpoint. But, I think they're building to something, man. They're going to be all right.
The sauce move, I think, shocked the NFL world.
Yeah.
Between that and Quinnen Williams, you are now armed, if you're Aaron Glenn, with a boatload of premium picks. And you can build it the way you want, which is really his coaching DNA going all the way back to Dan Campbell with Detroit.
Yeah, and a lot of people look at the names, right? Substance, the name. Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, a cornerstone of the defense. One guy's rookie of the year, the other guy's been the beef of the front line. And then when a new coach comes in there, and although they paid Sauce Gardner, that just goes to show me at some point he was going to be for sale. What is the price going to be? And if they can continue to keep raising the price with Indianapolis and Indianapolis falls for it, how could you pass on it, right? And Quinnen Williams, at some point, you're going to have to address his contract again. And on top of that, he's getting a little older. And if you could get a guy that could do some of the same things in one of those first 2 rounds as Quinnen Williams, doesn't mean he has to be Quinnen Williams, just some of the same things. You make that move. You do. Now, look, what if Mozzie who they got in the trade from Dallas, all of a sudden decide he wants to play professional football. Now you get him, and you don't have Quinnen Williams, and now you get that guy who's cheaper and who could do some of the same things that Quinnen Williams can do. That's why he was selected where he was selected by the Cowboys.
You know, one of my question marks with the Jets has been like, what do they want to build? How do they want to build it? You know, and if I mentioned Dan Campbell, his first year in Detroit, 3-13-1. Aaron Glenn will have a similar type of record, I would imagine. But
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, if they had their way, what do you think? And you know Aaron Glenn well, very well. If he had his way, how do you think he'd want to build this team? Obviously, there's a toughness factor, defense, but what is it that he's looking for that they don't have right now, you think?
You got to look at it from the perspective, as I told you when you first started this show and we were talking about it. And I said, you got to get your own guys and your own personalities and the people that resonate to you as a coach. And that's what he's doing, right? It doesn't mean that Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams doesn't communicate well with Aaron Glenn and doesn't have his personality. It just means that he wants to get his own guys. So what you tend to do is you start off by trying to figure out how to get your franchise quarterback. Where's that guy at? Because right now it's not Justin Fields. So how do we do that? Do we package some things up and go get a Joe Burrow potentially? I know I'm gonna throw that out there. You know, is that something that you say? Okay, we getting ready to give you these 3 1s we got.
They're not getting Joe Burrow.
I'm not saying Joe Burrow per se.
You're saying
I'm just throwing
okay.
a quarterback of that level, somebody of that level, right? That you decide that this is what you want to go do with those picks. Or do you go and try to move up in a draft? Well, you already be high, but do you move somewhere to try to get one of these young quarterbacks that's coming out in the draft? You start off by doing that. Then if there is a pass rusher that can go get that quarterback that you play against, because you're going to be playing against two guys in that division that you got to get on the ground, Josh Allen and Drake May. You got to get them on the ground. So you got to go find a guy that can go and do that. Then you go and you replace a Sauce Gardner with a guy that's a shutdown corner. Then you go find you another wide receiver or two to pair with Garrett Wilson. You hold on to Breece Hall as long as you can. Because
he'll be
his
a free agent,
statistics,
and we know he doesn't want to be there.
well, statistically, the numbers won't give him the value. It won't give him the value on the open market when they look at the film. But do you try to convince him to stay and do a discount of some sort? Or does he want to leave and you go and you supplant him with another running back? That's how you build your team. That's how you build it. And I think that's how Aaron Glenn will build the Jets moving forward.
The Colts, to me, making the move for Sauce Key is a big signal that they really believe in Daniel Jones. It gives him a lot of leverage because they don't make this move if they don't believe in this current iteration of this team. And that starts and ends ultimately with the quarterback.
Yeah, he can do some goofy things, as I told you before, and make you scratch your head and go, what the hell are you doing? And we just saw it early Sunday morning from Berlin, right? It's like, dude, seriously?
There's only a select few of truly elite guys, but if Jones can be as good as if he continues to play at this level, they're right there.
They are there. I still question their defense to some degree, and I still question the receiving core, so to speak. I feel like they're missing well, Pittman and Pierce is good. I'm not saying they're not good.
I like Downs too, and the tight end's great.
But yeah, of course the tight end he's going to be one of those guys. You know, Warren's really good coming out of Penn State. When he caught, I don't know what it was, 30 passes in one game against USC, I knew he was legit. But I'm talking about a top end guy. Like they need a one of those shifty guys in that system. Daniel Jones can't turn the football over. Okay, he turns the ball over way too much for me. Even if he recovers a fumble, it still gives me heartache to watch it. So I think they're there. I don't think that they're at the top of the AFC, but they're certainly right there in that 4 or 5 categories.
The Giants fired Brian Daboll. What was your initial reaction to that?
Well, I knew he was going to get fired.
Because
My right hand up to God, I said,
on the fourth
watching the
down,
game, no, just in general, I said, he going to get Jackson Dart hurt. I said that. I said it. I said, he's going to get him hurt. Like, what are you doing? Like, these coaches are so enamored with running these quarterbacks, and they don't understand these quarterbacks are fragile, okay? Especially when they're not accustomed to getting hit on a constant basis. They're fragile. When you talk about watching Lamar Jackson, everybody wants that. Josh Allen is a big dude. Jackson Dart's not small, but
Josh
you
Allen.
can't. But Josh Allen is huge, and you can't continue to run. As soon as that happened, I said he's gonna get fired. He just cost himself a job.
Because of all the concussion checks and the fact that he has all these design runs.
Too many design runs, concussion checks, sticking your head in the tent when you're not supposed to, and you're not winning. If you're winning, we could kind of ignore some of those things, but you're not winning. You're losing games and you're losing leads. That's like a no-no in the National Football League. Like you're like literally losing leads.
Yeah, the other part of this is Joe Shane, the GM, who came in with Brian Daboll from Buffalo. They're 20-40-1, one playoff win in 3+ years. How do you assess his future? Because I don't think he's necessarily like out of the woods.
Well, I think he's done a good job at assembling players. I really do. Now, whether that's a combination of him and Brian Daboll agreeing to select a certain type of player, he gets the credit for it. The head coach isn't going to get the credit unless the head coach has full autonomy. Sean Payton will get that credit for Bo Nix, not the general manager. Those are the sort of things that he's dealing with in New York. He's done a good job at putting the players on the field. You drafted the kid out of Penn State and Scatterboo out of Arizona State. You pluck the receiver in Neighbors. You got the quarterback in Jackson. So you see what I'm saying? Jackson Dart. So you start looking at how he's put this team together. That's why he's in a safe place. But he won't be in a safe place with the next head coach because the next head coach will blame him when it goes wrong. He can't blame the next head coach.
Key, knowing Jerry the way you do, having played there and knowing that Pickens is up for a contract, how do you see that negotiation process? Remember, too, that he has the same agent, David Mulugheta, as Micah Parsons.
That's one player versus another player. Has nothing to do with whatever went on with Parsons. Shouldn't have anything to do with George Pickens. And I know they're at the same agency. I don't know if David Mulugheta actually represents Pickens. I know they're in the same agency. So I don't think that is going to have anything to do with it. Pickens doesn't. He wants to just play. From what I understand, he wants to play and he'll deal with it in the offseason. You certainly want him if you Jerry Jones. He's there. CeeDee Lamb is healthy and he's healthy, and you get another third receiver, and you look toward 2026, you have a pretty good offense.
Yeah, but how essential is it for them to extend him, knowing he's going to be very expensive?
If they can do it, try to do it. But maybe he doesn't want to be the second guy there. Maybe he wants to go to Carolina and be the one, or go to the Raiders and be the one. I don't know. But he certainly wants to get paid.
Jonathan Taylor right now is on a historic pace. Every week it feels like he's having an incredible game because he is. And he did it last week, 244 yards, 3 touchdowns. What does he have to do?
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so we haven't had an MVP at running back since Adrian Peterson, 2012. He's third right now. Taylor is an odds. But what would he have to do to actually win MVP?
So who's in front of him
So
right
you got
now?
the only guys in front are Stafford and May. That's it.
I understand it's a quarterback award, but are the New England Patriots winning because of Drake May?
He's played great. Stafford has
That's not what I asked
25
you.
touchdowns and 2
But that's
picks.
that's not what I asked you.
Oh, I think they're winning
I asked
because of
you-
him. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think they're winning because of him. I think they're winning because of the two coaches on the sideline,
Right.
and Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels. That's why I think they're winning. As far as Stafford goes, this is a normal Stafford year. There's
No, he's
nothing,
been better than
you know.
ever, though. 25 touchdowns,
No,
2
no, no.
picks.
I understand that he's been better, but this is the normal. There's nothing eye-popping about Matthew Stafford and what he's doing. He does this every year. He literally does it every year. He literally does it every year, though. Seriously, Jordan. Just look at it.
When he's healthy, yeah.
when he's healthy. Yeah, he's got to be healthy. Obviously, that's the key. But I think that Indianapolis wouldn't be in this position that they're in if it wasn't for Jonathan Taylor. I can't say that about the Rams and Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and and Puka, Nakua, and Adams. And so when you start putting it together, it's a totally different situation. I would say Jonathan Taylor's my MVP if I had a vote and it ended today.
He has to continue at this pace, basically, to win it because it's so hard for a running back.
Yeah, but if he can get 2,000 yards, slightly under that, and I know Saquon Barkley didn't get it when he did it. He didn't get the MVP, but it was a different quarterback year. So when it's a different quarterback year, it's different. Matthew Stafford and Drake May, the only two quarterbacks. And again, I'll say this: Drake May isn't the reason that New England is winning. It's those coaches on that sideline. That's really what it is. They've gotten him to play a certain way, and they're calling the game a certain way. Matthew Stafford is loaded offensively, and he's done a tremendous job, and he's going to be right there in the running. But I've seen quarterbacks throw for 25 touchdowns and 5 interceptions at this point in the year. I've never really seen these running backs take off and do the things that they're doing, carrying this team. He's literally carrying the team.
Key, we talked about Sauce, but which move at the deadline in your eyes is going to be the most impactful long term?
Then we talked about Sauce and Quinnen, but Phillips, watching him with Philadelphia last night, and Vic Fangio, again, a guy that he played with in Miami a couple years ago, was having some success until he got hurt in the month of October, and then it kind of went in another direction. Probably will have, but he's a free agent at the end of the year.
He is a free agent,
they gotta figure,
and they who knows if I'm sure they would love to extend him if the price is right, but he will be pricey.
and they're good. Philadelphia Eagles are going to find a way to extend him. They always do. He will probably turn out to be the best bet
You think so?
trade deadline guy. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, man. I've been having conversations. It's so funny because you're having conversations with friends, right? Last night doing the game, this morning as I'm driving the kids to school, and we're just talking, and we're talking about Phillips and Michael Parsons and T.J. Watt and Miles Garrett and all. They're comparing guys, and you look at it and you go, Phillips is not making $150 million in guaranteed money, but he put a display on last night as if he was. Where the other guy across from him, didn't look quite the same. So you start trying to figure out who's evaluating and where's the value. Is the value in the Jalen Phillips? Is the value in the Michael Parsons? Is the value in the Miles Garrett, T.J. Watt? Like, where's the value for those type of players at? Is it Khalil Mack that I watched the other night? Like, where's the value? Do you have to have such a high price pass rush defensive end specialist type, or could you get a guy that is just good enough and does the job, and you're getting everything you need out of it for the price?
Go back to the Giants. What would be the ideal coach for them to bring in? Because the reason I ask this is because Draymond and me were talking about this last night. And
what the hell does Draymond know about football?
He knows a lot, but he knows about winning.
Oh God, I can't listen to him.
He knows
basketball.
He knows about winning, and his thought was, if you're the Giants, this is not the time to bring in like a young first-year head coach. You can't risk it with someone like that. You should bring in. He actually mentioned John Gruden, who I know you wouldn't feel good about, but his thought process was, let's bring in an established head coach, not a first-timer.
Again, like I said, what if he's mentioning John Gruden again? What the hell does
Let's
Draymond
go Spider
know
2 wide
about
banana on
coaching
2-on-2
football?
break.
Look, I don't think the John Gruden thing is
but the point is an established coach.
I understand. So when you say an established coach, I would look at an established coach that is hanging around, that may have failed before, along the lines. Here's who I would look at. I'd take a swipe at a guy named Anthony Lynn in Washington. Okay. He didn't get a fair shot in Los Angeles with the Chargers. He really didn't. He was there, what, 3 years? First year, he was there, whatever. Then when they draft the quarterback, he's rushed into playing the quarterback because they punctured the guy's lungs in Tyrod Taylor. And so he had to force Justin Herbert to play, and that wasn't the plan. The plan was this. So Anthony Lynn would be a guy. Then here's another guy, and Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce, in
I
my
don't know.
opinion, in my opinion, hold on one second.
Okay.
In my opinion, he was failed with the Raiders. Number one, they did not get him a quarterback at all whatsoever. So when you don't have a quarterback, you're going to lose. He stood on the table for them to trade the world to go get Jaden Daniels. Guess what? The Washington Commanders said, we want Jaden Daniels. The Raiders said, we like what we have and what's his name? The guy
Gardner Minshew?
Minshew. We like Minshew, and we like the other guy. Didn't give him a fair shot. On top of that, he knows the Giants' culture. He understands what winning is all about. I'm just saying, don't go. Don't do that. Don't look at. But you say John Gruden. So what's the difference? Let me ask you that though, Jordan. What's the difference
between
John Gruden and AP?
Oh no, I wouldn't advocate for Gruden, but I don't think bringing in AP. I don't think he'll ever be a head coach again, realistically.
But why?
Because
tell me why.
Because you mentioned the quarterback, but that was a very his whole thing was players coach, advocate for the players.
But if I don't have a quarterback,
it just never looked right.
The reason Sean McDermott is still in Buffalo,
because
he got a quarterback.
Josh Allen.
Because of Josh Allen. The reason Vrabel in Tennessee is because of Tannehill.
And an owner who fired. Yeah, that's another story.
Yeah, but when you don't have a quarterback, you're going to get fired. Period.
Bill Belichick
no coach
is probably
makes
the best example of that.
I can go Belichick. Look at what Sam Darnold is doing in Pacific Northwest for them. That coach looks like a damn genius now, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So you have to. All right. You have to kind of understand what I'm saying. But veteran coach, and as I was thinking, I don't know a veteran coach that's really out there.
They always come about. They come out of
like
the woodworks.
Who though? Like who? I'm not. What do you want me to go hire? Mike Holmgren? Like what are you looking for?
Mike Holmgren? No. Mike McCarthy maybe.
Mike McCarthy would be a good one. That would be a good one. I would look at Mike McCarthy over Antonio Pierce. I also would look at Anthony Lynn over Antonio Pierce. I would look at that.
You do get a little concerned about a guy in his third job as opposed to I always like this first or second. Third job can go either way, but that's the
maybe you see if Stefanski becomes available.
Stefanski, interesting.
He becomes available, and maybe you look at that. Maybe you say, okay, he finally got a solid quarterback, and he'll have Neighbors at the receiver position and Scatterboo at the running back spot, and our defense is solid. Maybe that's a guy that you take a look at because there'll be guys that become available, But right now, I don't know any coaches that's out there on the streets that I would be like, hire that guy.
Urban Meyer.
No, we're saving him for us.
Oh, for SC. Oh, I like that little nugget. Keyshawn, thank you so much as always for joining the show. And here's what I'll say: I noticed you the other day at SC. You led the team onto the field.
Yeah. There's a deal that they do where ex-players and people bring out the team.
That is so dope.
Out the tunnel.
What was that? What was that like?
I've run out of that tunnel before.
Oh, that wasn't your first time in the Coliseum?
It wasn't my first time in the Coliseum going out the tunnel.
But
it was
great,
fun.
though. You had your kids. It was really...
it was Northwestern. The last time we played Northwestern, we beat them in the Rose Bowl back in like 96. And so the whole Rose Bowl team, the people that are still with us and around, were all at the game, and we were all there. And so I kind of led the team out. And it was pretty cool to see some of my old teammates that I hadn't seen Some of those guys I hadn't seen in 30 years, man.
I love it. Awesome. Key, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week, brother.
All right, we'll talk.
And now for our weekly bets presented by Fanatics Sportsbook. This is the first time I'm seeing these bets. I'm picking between the two. So we got Bills -5.5 versus the Bucks, or Steelers -5.5 versus the Bengals. I'm going to take Buffalo. I know it's a big number. My reasoning is they're coming off a devastating loss against Miami. And in the NFL, whenever a very good team loses against a very bad team, or at least on paper, a bad team in terms of the record, they generally find a way to strike back. This is a home game. I'll take Buffalo. We got Broncos +3.5 versus Kansas City. We got Seattle +3 at the Rams. I'm going to take the Seahawks +3 at the Rams. Two teams playing as well as anybody in the NFC. Matthew Stafford, 25 touchdowns, 2 picks. Sam Darnold has been terrific. That aerial attack, unbelievable, especially with JSN. They get Rashid Shaheed. That's a game changer in terms of the speed. Very tough game. This is a very tough game to pick. But I'm going to take Seattle +3 at LA. Then we got the Ravens -8.5 at Cleveland, or Green Bay -7.5 at the Giants. I'm going to take the Packers. Again, good team coming off a bad loss, although this isn't really a bad loss, but a frustrating loss at home against Philadelphia. And the Giants, to me right now, pretty rudderless, coming off another horrible fourth quarter loss to Chicago. Sometimes you get that interim head coach bump, and maybe they get that with Mike Kafka, their interim head coach. But I like Green Bay -7.5 on the road. That is it for episode 11 of the Schultz Report. Thank you to Keyshawn for, as always, putting up with my amazing takes. And, of course, thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We'll see you on Saturday.